Welcome to the WPC Virtual Care Partner webinar. My name is Miriam Parry. I'm a Parkinson's disease nurse specialist working at King's College Hospital in London in the United Kingdom. We are delighted to have you join us for this important conversation. Meeting Parkinson as a teenager, how to navigate your parents' diagnosis. Teenagers already face many challenges as they transition from childhood to adulthood. Some of the most common struggles may include the following: looking at academic pressure, high expectation, exam stress, and balancing school with hobbies, social struggles, peer pressure, friendship dynamic, and something nice like romantic relationship, mental health concern, including anxiety, depression, self-esteem, and body image issues. And when we're talking about family, struggles for independence and misunderstanding at home, technology and social media, navigating online life and digital distraction, and finally, future uncertainties, career choices, fear of failure, and financial concern. And these challenges, learning that a parent has Parkinson's disease can feel overwhelming. As a teenager, you are already juggling school, friendship, and personal growth. Now, you must also process a life-changing diagnosis in your family. The emotional impact of parents' diagnosis. Having a parent with Parkinson's can introduce new emotional and practical challenges, such as the emotional weight of caregiving, feeling of fear, helplessness, and uncertainty, the stress of watching a loved one health decline, balancing personal struggle with family responsibilities. It is okay to feel a mix of emotions, frustration, sadness at times, maybe guilt, or even resentment. Supporting a parent with Parkinson's requires emotional resilience, practical adjustment, and an understanding of the disease. Learning how Parkinson's may affect your parents over time and finding ways to cope emotionally and make a significant difference. Today, we are honored to hear from individuals who have first-hand experience navigating life with a parent diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. With us, we have Mimi Thomas from the UK, Abbas Ali as well from the UK, both age 15, currently navigating their teenage years with a parent living with Parkinson's disease. We also have Nastasia Donoho and Colin O'Connor from the US, now adult. Colin grew up with a parent diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and Nastasia came to be aware of this diagnosis later on in the early 20s. They will share with us their perspective and experience. Each of their journey is unique, and through the voices, we will gain valuable insight into how Parkinson affects children at different stages of life. So what to expect in this webinar? Our panelists will share their stories, personal challenges, and lesson learned. We will also provide practical tips for teenagers navigating emotion and responsibilities when a parent has Parkinson's, and also parents with Parkinson understanding and supporting their children through this journey. We hope that the discussion offers guidance, reassurance, and a sense of community for those facing similar experiences. We will start by introducing each of our panelists. And today, as I said, we're joined by Mimi Anastasia, Colin, and Abbas. And I will start first asking Mimi to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her story. Thank you, Mimi.
I'm Mimi. I'm 15 years old and I live in the UK right now, but I was born in the US and my parents are from Nigeria. And I have an older brother. My mom has Parkinson's disease and she was diagnosed in 2016. So I was 7 years old when she was diagnosed, but she's experienced symptoms of Parkinson's throughout her whole life. And I think growing up with a parent who has Parkinson's disease, particularly as a teenager, I think it really affects the way you grow up and it shapes who you are.
Thank you, Mimi. We now ask Anastasia to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Nastasha. I'm from the US. My mom was diagnosed when I was in my 20s. However, after reflection over the last 10 years, we've all agreed that symptoms probably started 5 to 10 years earlier, so when I was in adolescence. And it has really shaped not only my journey, but my siblings' journey, who the diagnosis came when they were in their adolescence and in high school still. So it's really shaped our later teens into our early adulthood life. And that has been our journey.
Thank you very much. We now move to Colin. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Colin. I'm 32 years old. I live in New York City, and my professional life is actually pretty tied up with my mother and her PD. Some of you may know her. Her name's Pamela Quinn. She's a accomplished movement therapist who has been involved with the WPC for years. She was a professional dancer before being diagnosed when I was 3 years old in 1996, so a long time ago. And then a little over a year into her diagnosis, she made an impromptu discovery that allowed her to regain partial mobility. She spent about a decade experimenting with this on herself before combining it with her dance background to create a movement class called PD Movement Lab. And over the next 10 to 15 years, that blew up. She was featured in news outlets, universities, multiple WPCs, and more. I had the fortune of growing up and watching that second career of hers take off. And it was inspiring, but more acutely, as a child of the internet, I couldn't help but think that if we could take what she had to offer and put it in an accessible digital format, we could help a lot more people. And so that's really what I've been focused on in my life for the past 6 or so years. We've created a walking therapy that has passed a clinical trial, and we're running a second one later this year. And I also have to mention that I have managed the production of the last two opening ceremony dances for the WPC, which my mother, Pam, choreographed, and that has involved coordinating with PWP across many different countries. And both of those times have been just an absolute joy. So
Thank you, Colin. It's lovely to hear that. And finally, we will move to Abbas.
Hi, I'm 15 years old. My name's Abbas. I live in the UK. My mum was diagnosed with Parkinson's when I was around 11 years old. Me and my older brother, who's 17 now, but 13 at the time, um, we weren't quite sure what it was because we were quite young. I just had disease and thought, oh no. But as we grew older, we learned more about it, and we learned to accept it, and it's part of her now. All her work revolves around, and that's quite nice to see. And it's not really affecting her too much, so it's quite nice to be able to live her life as she is, and that's really happy to see because I don't want to see it like affect her too much or have an effect on her quality of life, etc. So yeah.
Thank you, Abbas. I want to thank all of you for joining us, and this is very personal story to you, and it's very kind of you to come to this platform and share your stories, and hopefully with your stories, with your experiences, some of our listeners, being teenager or parents, can learn and get some tips on how to handle teenager growing with Parkinson's disease. Thank you so much. We have a lot of questions that we prepared and we thought about to cover in this session. We hope that we can get through many of these questions with the help of our panelists, and we will address some questions to all our panelists and some will be to some of our panelists. Our question divided into different kind of categories, and we will start with a category of family and support system. And the first thing we can discuss is, how did your family handle the diagnosis? Was it openly discussed or was it difficult to talk about? And let's start with Nastasia.
Thanks. So when my mom was going through the journey of getting her diagnosis, it was within 10 months of our grandma passing. And so when I was home, I had just gotten back from a trip living abroad, and she had taken a medical leave and she had shared with me. I was the oldest and kind of at home in the middle of figuring out what I was doing while my siblings were still going to school every day. Shared that she's just taking some time off, not feeling good, and I was aware of that. A few months later, once my mom and dad had a grip on what was happening and received the diagnosis of Parkinson's, we had a family conference kind of in the living room. And this was almost 10 years ago, maybe a little more than 10 years ago, sitting in the living room. And I actually recently spoke with my siblings to ask, do you remember how we found out? And we all couldn't really remember the exact moment. I remember being in the living room. I don't remember my siblings being there. My siblings don't remember it at all. But I did confirm with my mom, and she's like, no, we sat you down and we shared. And then we all kind of went our own way. Again, my siblings were much younger than me, and they kind of absorbed it, and we all went our own way. Our parents were very open and said, any questions you have, ask. I went immediate into research. I kind of followed my mom's path of, you learn of a diagnosis, I've got to figure out everything about it, because up until that moment in my brain, this was grandpa's disease. This was the older man disease, and our grandpa had Parkinson's. So that's kind of where our journey was and learning. But from that moment on, it was an open door, and we spoke about it openly. It helped that we had a blueprint for a chronic illness in the family. My youngest brother was diagnosed with diabetes when he was 8. So we all kind of went through that journey. So when this happened, we just fell back on the playbook that we knew and how to rally around each other.
Yeah. How about Mimi?
So when my mom was diagnosed, I was only 7 years old. So at the time, I didn't really understand how my parents and their parents were accepting the disease or reacting to it. But I think now I'm older and I can understand more how my family felt when they found out. So in a lot of African countries, particularly Nigeria, which is where I'm from, diseases like Parkinson's are seen as a topic that shouldn't really be discussed, because a lot of people from Nigeria think that it's a curse or something that shouldn't be spoken about. So a lot of my family members have struggled to accept it and struggled to understand really what it is. And that's why I think it's really important to raise awareness about the disease, specifically in Africa, so that people understand you can speak about it and it's not a curse or something that shouldn't be accepted.
Thank you, Mimi. You bring in such an important point here. Different culture will perceive this condition differently, and there'll be a different kind of taboo or maybe openness about ability to discuss diagnosis like this with the children. Thank you for that. Colin, what about you?
Um, before I say what I want to, I actually have a question for Nastasia. Um, were you said you dove into research. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different descriptions of what Parkinson's can and can't be online. Were you like scared of whatever you found, or like what was that experience like for you?
It was a little shocking. So my grandpa presented, he was diagnosed later in life, and had like the classic symptoms of tremors, needing a walker. He was in his 70s, I think, when he was diagnosed. I could be wrong. So I'd seen that, and mom wasn't presenting at all like that. So I was like, why? I'm confused. And then when I dove into the research and seeing that there was so much focus on one over the other, there wasn't a lot on young onset, there wasn't a lot on women. So there was a, a big void of unknown out there at the time. But I also trusted my mom to be open and honest and share what she was going through, while also trying not to freak out and know that it's still not very well studied, especially among women who are younger. But it was a moment of what Pandora box did I just open? Because this is not what I'm seeing.
Uh, Great. Yeah, I mean, we actually have a lot of commonalities that my mom was diagnosed when she was 42. So also in that woman, super young, probably the smallest demographic of people who are diagnosed. I luckily did not have, at that point, was too young and didn't even really have the internet to freak out over.
Yeah.
Um, uh, one, my experience was also pretty different because I didn't experience the inflection point of diagnosis, but I really, really appreciate the approach that my parents took growing up, which was um, they their policy was to answer any questions I asked, but not to necessarily volunteer that much information. And that way, for a young child, they weren't hiding anything. There wasn't the burden of the disease on them. They weren't being untruthful, but they also weren't forcing anything too heavy or too complex onto me. Um, and and this, in the kind of short term and in the long run, this allowed me to come to the disease on my own terms. It allowed me to take interest in what was going on in my own terms. And eventually, I did do that in quite a major way. But I think I was only able to do that with such interest because my decision arose organically, and the oh, your mom has Parkinson's wasn't made super apparent to me. So I think that policy of answering any questions but not necessarily um, uh, offering a ton of information, it worked really well for me as a young child.
Thank you, Colin. And you raised a very important point here. Even when we inform an individual with diagnosis of Parkinson's disease as an adult, and we explain the nature of this condition, and the symptoms, prognosis, etc. Some information will sink in. Not everybody wants to hear so much information, so some want little, some want more. And by the end of this, the individual, depending on the personality, will go and explore and search and and so on. And so it's really important. So for adults, we know that we direct them to websites that are with robust data and with good information to explain about this condition. I just wonder about a teenager. Did you come across any good website that will explain that to a teenager that will go and Google after chatting to the parents about this condition? Colin?
Me?
If you were to search now as a teenager, have you come across any good website that we can direct our teenager to read more about, that it's safe, that it's robust with data behind it, that, you know, because there's so much out there.
Since I didn't encounter it as a teenager, I'm not sure I can really speak to that. Uh, I did drop some links in the resource section, which I'll talk about later. But in terms of specifically educating teenagers, I'm not sure I have much to add.
Thank you. Thank you. Abbas, would you like to add to this?
Well, I know this isn't quite like what everyone's going to use because it's sometimes unreliable, but I just use ChatGPT or something like that if I had a quick question, and it just gave me a little insight. If I was a bit worried, it would just tell me, no, it'll be fine, whatever. Because it speaks to you a slightly more personal level, and it helps you as it gathers information from loads of sources and compiles it. So I found that was a bit better than going to individual sites.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, and Colin mentioned, there will be a list of link for education and resources on the topic that we are talking about this morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Now we're going to move to another question. Did your sibling, if to those of you who have sibling, did they react differently to the diagnosis? Let's start with Nastasia. I know that you have sibling.
Yeah, we all kind of reacted a little differently, but also similarly, and really, really valid for where we were in our life stages. So my brother's 10 years younger than me, and my sister is 7 years younger than me. So there's a big age difference between us. So when being in my 20s and fresh out of college, I was like, I'm gonna research. I followed a path of public health. I went that way. I remember my sister and brother kind of just absorbing it a little bit more quietly, and then we would have little like sibling chats about it like the next few years as we grew. I wanted to know everything possible, especially in my 20s. I was very much, I needed to know where the path was going. I was very rigid in my thinking of, I need to know what the next 10 years are planned out. It needs to have that look, and not knowing what this was going to change it. Whereas my siblings were much more like, we're just going to follow how it goes, which was really helpful for me because with a diagnosis like Parkinson's, you can't see what the next 5, 10, 20 years are going to look like because Parkinson's is different for each individual living with Parkinson's. And I really leaned on my siblings because I was moving. I was living abroad a lot. I moved to Lesotho in Southern Africa for a few years. They were all on the West Coast. I went to grad school in Georgia. So I had to really check in with my siblings and rely on them to keep me updated on how things were going. And I remember the first time I had gone about a year and a half without seeing my parents when I was living in Lesotho. They came to visit me. Um, and my mom was having a really symptomatic time, and I had never seen her symptoms that extreme before. It was confounded with the fact that she was also sick, which we learned when you're sick, it will exacerbate your symptoms. But I had a lot of conversations with my sister being like, is this what mom is like every day? Do I need to come home? And she's like, no, this is not what mom's like every day. Calm down. So that was really helpful to balance that and have our siblings kind of keep each other in the loop when needed, and also be a sounding board and be like, I'm struggling with this. How are you doing with this? Or being like, I feel like I've dove way too deep in this. Do I need to like reel back? And so it's been helpful to have all of my siblings, all of us take like a different path with it, where I've become super involved. I went to the last WPC. My siblings have done some gala fundraising and stuff, but we've all done different levels of advocacy. And it's been a good balance to keep us all as a family supporting each other, even though we all kind of reacted differently.
Thank you. What about you, Mimi? Did your sibling react differently to the diagnosis?
I don't entirely remember how I reacted because I was so young. I was 7 years old. So there wasn't really a definitive moment when my mom was diagnosed and when I understood what that meant for her. And my brother's only 2 years older than me. So I think he kind of had a similar experience to me in that we both didn't really understand what it meant to have Parkinson's disease or how that would affect her life or even our life. But as we've both grown older, we can kind of understand more what the disease is and how that affects her. So generally, I think we both had kind of similar experiences and we both to it in the same way. And we both, growing up, didn't really understand, but now we do have more understanding of what she's going through.
Thank you. Moving on, did you ever feel isolated from your peer because of your family situation? And I'm going to ask Abbas to answer this question.
I wouldn't really say so, not really, no. My friends have always been supportive, even before the diagnosis, and after they were just as supportive. And there was no reason for them or anyone else to treat me differently. It was just a diagnosis. And I never felt excluded or like I didn't belong. Sometimes I'll ask like how I'm doing or how my mum's doing, and that's kind of quite kind of thoughtful and but like not in a nosy way, in a genuine way. So it's quite nice. And that being said, there have been times where that I felt I might not fully understand what's like at home or how like from day to day when you're living with someone who has a long-term condition. But I've never truly felt isolated because of it. If anything, it's kind of helped me like appreciate the friends who do check and stick around and like help me. And like if I get upset or if I'm worried, etc., just reassure me.
It's great to hear that because being a parent, any parents, we tend to overprotect our children sometimes, particularly when it's coming to situation like this. And there'll be that executive decision between a couple parents, what we should say, what we shouldn't say to protect the child. But it's so, I'm really so pleased to hear that from you, Abbas, that it's actually a positive experience and that our audience can listen and maybe take advice from that. Thank you. So, looking at personal impact and emotion, how did your relationship with your parent change after the diagnosis? And Anastasia, I go back to you.
Yeah, I think the biggest change in my relationship with my parents is I really started checking in more with my dad being the primary caregiver, because when my mom was diagnosed, she went into retirement. She was a nurse practitioner midwife and so needed to transition into a new chapter of her life. And my dad, super supportive, but being the caregiver of a loved one and being day in day, helping my mom navigate the diagnosis and navigate the changes, I have found myself really checking in a little bit more with him than my mom, making sure that he's taking care of himself. And I feel like it's brought us closer, my dad and I, which has been helpful. My mom and I have always been really close and able to talk about everything. And now I feel very similar with my dad. And it's open. We've always been a very open family about what's going on with us, health-wise, relationship-wise, um, just how we're doing. But it really helped that groundwork helped know that they were always going to be honest with us and upfront when something was changing, or if mom was thinking of doing a clinical trial, if mom was thinking of navigating a different path for treating her Parkinson's. So it's been really awesome to be part of those conversations. I don't know if I would have if my mom was never diagnosed with Parkinson's. Um, so that's been nice. And it's also just been nice to be able to check in with both, but have a little different of a check-in, checking with mom on how she's doing, and then checking with dad on how are you doing? How's mom doing? How are the rest of us doing? So that's how my relationship has changed.
Great, thank you. And with the same question, Abbas, would you like to tell us, has this changed or the relationship with your parents after the diagnosis?
To be honest, like I wouldn't say our relationship has changed in like a huge way. Like my mom's still my mom, my dad's still my dad. Um, we still go by our lives as we normally would. We've always been close. I mean, very close to them both. And when she was first diagnosed, I was quite worried. I was younger then, and it was hard to understand exactly what Parkinson's was or meant or how it could affect her like the long term. But they both reassured me, they eat and everything. And my mother reassured me too. And then there were moments where I did feel like slightly unsure and scared about what was going to happen, and that made me more protective of her. But I've grown to like uh let her be, etc. And then uh so as I've grown, I've learned more about the condition, and like those worries have become easier to manage. And now I just try to be like supportive and like just there if she needs me. Like sometimes she gets like dyskinetic or like really stiff in the evenings, and I do have to keep her going up and down the stairs, which is it can be slightly annoying, but it's fine. She needs it. And then um it's funny when we're watching the movie, she always falls asleep now. Like she says she's not gonna fall asleep, and then about 20 minutes in, she's already dozing off. But yeah, it hasn't really impacted in any way. If anything, it's made our like relationship stronger because we have to like keep on talking to each other, connect to each other, etc. But yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And you know, we said that parents are overprotective of children, and you're showing that side that sometimes you feel like protective towards, and it's so natural to do that amongst family members. Mimi, what about you? Has that changed your relationship after the diagnosis with your mom?
Well, my mom's shown symptoms of Parkinson's her whole life. Well, for my whole life. So I don't think there was exactly specific changes in our relationships, but I have noticed that as I've gotten older and understood her condition, I think her having Parkinson's has made us closer and made our relationship stronger because I'm more patient and I can understand what she's going through and how it affects her. And there's no kind of stigma against talking about it because we are so open and it has made us open to speaking about disease. So I think it's definitely made our relationship stronger and it's made me closer with her.
It's so nice to hear that. Thank you, Mimi. Um, Another aspect is, and this question I will ask Colin, were there any particular milestone, like school, birthday, life event, that were impacted by your mom's condition?
Yeah, so I have two different answers here. And the first actually really plays off of what you said, Abbas, about it wasn't a big deal when she was diagnosed among my friends. And what you said, Miriam, about parents tending to be overprotective. My mother had that same instinct for me, especially when I was a young child. And because of that, I learned this later. She made the decision to not not volunteer for any school field trips until I was in fourth or fifth grade or something because she was afraid that the kids would see her abnormal movement and they'd comment on it and maybe they would uh, they would tease me or something like that. She was afraid of some situation like that. And then when she finally went on a field trip when I was 9 or 10, I didn't even think about her PD until it didn't even come up until the very, very end of the school trip. When it was like the last 5 minutes, we were walking back to the school, and a friend asked me, "Why is your mom limping?" And I said, "What limp?" Because I had been like, part of it is I grew up with her with Parkinson's, and that was just her. I didn't even perceive it as something that was weird or not normal. And I said, "What limp?" And then it was a non-issue after that. I don't even remember how the conversation went after that. So especially if you're in the earlier stages of the disease as a parent, it is much, much more likely you're more self-conscious about your condition than your kid or any of their friends. And if you they're in their own world, their friends are in their own world, and if you have an opportunity to go on field trips with them or spend time with them, I really encourage you to not hold back and just do it. I think it's much less of a problem than people tend to make it out to be in their head. So thanks, Abbas, for sharing that, and thanks for making that point, Miriam. I just wanted to reinforce that. And then the second life event that I wanted to share is actually not a milestone of mine. It's a milestone of hers, and that impacted me in a major way. And that was when her dance/video piece called "Welcome to Our World" won the first WPC video competition back in 2011. And prior to this moment, I understood in a general sense that what she was doing was good and benevolent, but her winning this competition in this international venue changed my view of her from someone who is just kind of a genuinely good person to someone that was really inspirational. And I don't think I knew it at the time, but I think in some ways this win, this moment in her life was the start of me wanting to work with her. And so the WPC's decision to select her video not only put her on the map, but it also really impacted my life. And so I prepared that video, have it lined up with John, and I'd love to share it here. So John, why don't you go ahead and share it?
My first son, Colin, was in first grade. He came home one day and said, "Mommy, Charlie said you're going to die soon." I said, "Colin, we're all going to die sometime, but I'm not going to die soon." He had only known me with my Parkinson's. How I moved was normal to him. He had never seen me as a professional dancer. It angered me that his sense of security in the world was being affected by this disease. It was a beautiful spring day. I was walking up out of the subway and a man's eyes locked onto me. He said, "I'm going to heal you." He was wearing a big black cape. He said, "I'm going to heal you." And he followed me down the street. And he did kind of heal me because he made me walk a whole lot faster. And once I got away from him, I thought, maybe he's an angel in disguise. My second son, Liam, was 2 when the World Trade Center was attacked. I was pushing him in the stroller up the West Side Highway. There were throngs of people. They were hysterical. They were calling on phones. They were shaking. Everyone was shaking. I felt guilty for taking pleasure in that moment. I didn't tell anyone because it felt disrespectful. Parkinson's is full of surprises and contradictions. Sometimes we can't move, and other times we can't stop ourselves from moving. We're like athletes because we nurture our bodies, we cajole them, we work them every day. And how we feel about ourselves at any particular moment is directly related to how our body functions. I've had this disease for over 15 years. I hate it, and I'm thankful for it. I hate the fact that it's robbed me of my body, of my dreams for my future, of things I can do with my kids. I'm grateful for the patience it's taught me, the compassion, perseverance of spirit. Welcome to our world.
Wonderful. Such a beautiful video. And Colin, I can see why you are so proud of your mum. Amazing work. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you. Okay. Let's look at a different aspect of lessons and growth. And I've got another question for you, Colin. How has growing up with a parent who has Parkinson's shaped who you are today?
Well, I wanted to use this question just to stress to any parent with PD that even though there's no escaping that Parkinson's sucks, I mean, my mom lets me know that, your diagnosis can also be an incredible opportunity to model resilience for your kid. My mother has had PD for almost 30 years at this point, and I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of one time I've heard her really complain. Like, yes, sometimes there's limitations and difficulties, and we have to adjust for them, but nothing super dour. She just kind of puts her head down and does her best to find creative ways to deal with and overcome the challenges that Parkinson's throws at her. And so what does that do for me whenever I encounter difficulty? No one's life is easy, but if my mom can forge ahead in the face of a neurodegenerative disease, I can probably do the same thing when my life becomes tough. So I'm just really thankful to have a mother who shows me that level of grit, and I think all PWPs can certainly do that.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. So are there any positive lesson or strengths you've gained from this experience of growth and person growth with the parents with Parkinson's disease? And I will go back to Nastasia, please.
I think there's been a lot of amazing positive outcomes that we've experienced as a family, because as we've all alluded to, this is a a condition and a disease that really affects the entire family. And I think, not besides bringing us closer, it's been, like Colin, you were saying, it's been so fun to watch my mom evolve into this new chapter in being an advocate and on the front lines of really sharing that. I remember a couple years ago, her and someone from her young onset Parkinson support group got together to write a book. And when they were starting to write it, I was like, what are you doing? There's so many books out there. And they were like, it's going to be on resilience. And I was like, okay, okay. But I was still kind of like in my own world. Again, even as an adult child, it's so easy to just like wrap yourself in your own world. I knew my mom was writing this book. I knew she was doing podcasts. She was very active with Pro and just really throwing herself into advocating, especially for young onset Parkinson's and women with Parkinson's. So when I went to my first WPC, I volunteered, and on my name badge, I put Cat Hill mom as like my affiliation, because I didn't know, because I wasn't super active with Pro. I wasn't super active in any other organization. I was going to support my mom. And I remember within like 10 minutes of wearing my name badge, I had two people come up to me and be like, you know, Cat Hill, that's your mom? I'm like, yeah, that's my mom. And it was really fun to see my mom being a rock star the entire week. And just seeing her live this life that I didn't grow up with her. Like, I knew she was an amazing midwife. She was really active in that world, but to see everyone be like, I know your mom. I want to talk to your mom. And I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know where she is right now, but go find her. It was a really inspiring moment to see the impact that my mom was taking with such this thing that you could wallow on. You know, it's this neurodegenerative disease, and just trying to make the best out of it and trying to share with everyone what's been working with her, writing a book, doing a podcast, just trying to educate us, but not shoving it down her family's throat. Like, I had no idea how active and how big she was in this world until I stepped into the world to support a little bit more. And it's just been so fun. And I think it's been such a positive experience. It's fun as my siblings and I will talk about it. I remember texting them being like, mom's a rock star here, you guys. You don't understand. She's like popular. She's the cool mom. And like all of us just being proud and just like supporting her that way, it's really brought us closer. And it's been an immense positive out of it and giving us a roadmap for when life is hard, how you can make choices. You can feel it, but then let's turn it into something positive if we can.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And the same question, are there any positive lessons or strengths you gain from this experience of your mum Parkinson's disease, Mimi?
I think it's definitely taught me patience, and I'd say the same for my brother. Growing up with my mom who has Parkinson's taught us to be patient and understand, because I think that's really important in order to support someone with a disease like Parkinson's. And then also on top of that, I think it's taught me like compassion and being understanding, because there's so many symptoms and aspects of Parkinson's that most people can't necessarily see. And even though my mom tells me about them, I obviously can't understand because I'm not understanding what she's going through. But growing up with a parent who has Parkinson's teaches me to be more understanding of people, because you never really know what someone else is going through. And it just helps you be more compassionate for other people.
Absolutely, Mimi. Thank you for sharing that. One of the things that strike me, listen to you, you all got amazing parents, huge advocacy for people with Parkinson's, doing an amazing job, very important job. But there will be out there individual with Parkinson's disease who, depending on personalities, depending on circumstances, may choose not to do that kind of work. Not because they don't care, maybe they don't have that confidence, or maybe they don't have certain skills, or maybe they don't, for a variety of reasons. Or maybe they just don't want other people to know they've got Parkinson's disease as well. And and it's something that in clinic setting I see sometimes when parents may decide to tell initially the partner, maybe the children, the close family member, later on maybe a few friends, which is so hard to hide such a condition that have so many external kind of symptoms. Some will be working in some kind of job that they may think that they will be not quite judged, or people make assumption on their ability to perform to the level now that they've got Parkinson's disease in the work. I mean, I've got some High Court judge, for example, is an individual with Parkinson's disease, and he said to me, I certainly don't want people to know that I've got that. And I've got a psychiatrist with Parkinson's disease. And again, I hear that from them. They've got children, and it took them time to tell them, but I know, and I think the reason I'm mentioning that is that we need to respect the one that choose to be that huge advocacy that is important and able to do that. But there will be other parents there with a teenager who are joining us today or will be watching this webinar later on, that not dealing with advocacy or promoting that for certain reason, and that is okay. We are different. So just thought I would mention that. But you're doing amazingly. Colin.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to that. Obviously, as I just said, the advocacy work my mother has done, the work she does with people with Parkinson's is largely inspirational. But when I was talking about the, level of resilience and grit I was observing, that is actually comes much more from me watching her on a day in, day out basis manage the difficulties of the disease. Like for instance, this past year, she began having in 2024, she began having blackouts. It's a symptom that some people develop because of low blood pressure, which can be the result of medication use over an extended period of time. And, that puts her independence at risk. It puts her safety at risk. It's just generally terrifying. And you know, I'm not even sure she was public about that. That had no relationship to her advocacy, but me watching her just be like, okay, this is a problem. It's a big problem. Like, what can I do to deal with it and manage it when it is such a scary symptom? That is where I get the most inspiration from. And that doesn't apply, that applies to anyone, whether they choose to be public or not as public with their condition.
Absolutely, Colin. I agree with you. Thank you so much. We're going to stay with you, Colin, again. And if you could go back and give your younger self advice about dealing with a parent's illness, what would that be?
Well, I was actually really happy Mimi mentioned patience and um, the effort to have a greater awareness of some of the non-visible symptoms of PD, because that's actually where my answer goes. I really wish that growing up I had understood better Parkin how Parkinson's impairs executive function, um, and specifically how that impacted my mother's ability to learn new things, and even more specifically, her ability to learn how to use new technology. I mean, we're in the age of tech. And growing up, this was just, I mean, it was, she'll be the first one to admit it, an abysmal weakness of hers. I mean, I was constantly floored at what was going on. And honestly, at times as a kid, I think I may have thought lesser of her for it. But now that I'm older and I know more about the disease, I see her struggles in that specific domain much more as a result of this unseen symptom of Parkinson's disease than as something about her. And if I had known that, I think I would have been a lot more at times more empathetic uh, and patient. And so for the kids out there, I know it can be frustrating, but just remember that it's equally, if not more frustrating for your parents. And just briefly, I've in the resource PDF to this, I've just put like 3 or 4 very useful tech tips for working with your parents that I've experienced having being helpful to everyone involved.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for doing that as well. So did this experience influence your career choices, personal relationship, or future goals? And I will ask Abbas to answer.
I would say, yeah, definitely. I was like, when my mom was first diagnosed with Parkinson's, it made me like start thinking differently about what I might want to do in the future. Like, I'm still quite young, so I don't have everything figured out. Like, nothing I've done yet has affected my career, like what career I'm going to go into. But like seeing her go through this has made me more interested in medicine and that type of route and healthcare in general. And I just realized how important like medical professions are, just like people around her helping her. Like my dad's a doctor, he's helped her a lot. The other doctors she's seen, the nurses, whatever, so- and the researchers and everyone involved. And it's just they help so much, and it's just like I want to kind of be part of helping someone else in the future. And like her experiences are almost also made me like more understanding and patient relationships. Like Mimi and Colin have said, because I've learned to not judge people based on what I just see. Like come back to the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Because like you don't know what some of them are going through at home. So I've learned to be slightly more understanding and patient. So I'm not exactly 100% sure what path I'm going to go to, but something meaningful that helps others in a way is probably the route I want to go down to, and that's definitely influenced by my mom's diagnosis.
That's wonderful to hear that. Thank you, Abbas. And I'm going back to Colin.
I'll try to keep it short because I'm talking a lot, and everyone else's fantastic contributions as well. So, I mean, for me, the answer is obviously yes. I work with my mom right now. And as I said before, it came from my experience of watching her have this whole second career and feeling that if we could digitize what she had to offer, we could scale her impact. And I kind of began my career in media and tech, and so I was aware of what the tools were that we might be able to use to do that. And so just to be a little more specific about that work, well, I went to her and I asked her, what is the number one thing you have the ability to help people with? And without hesitation, she said, walking. And so what we've done is we've created a walking therapy called gatekeeping, spelled GAIT, keeping. It consists of a video course and a mobile application. And we've run a initial clinical trial on it, a small pilot study that was featured at the 2023 WPC. We're running a second clinical trial this year. We have a bunch of people several hundred people who have used it up until this point, and so it's been an amazing experience collaborating with her for that. But and you can get a link to it in the resources, so check it out. But on a larger level, for something that relates to everyone, I just want to stress that, as the people with the disease for PWP, the insights you have that you come up with while navigating your condition have tremendous potential to help others who share your diagnosis. And then for the kids, Abbas, you're kind of prime point for this. You already mentioned ChatGPT in this conversation, but you have, just because you're living with it, you have a really developed sense of the limitations, challenges, and abilities that your parent has. And that puts you in a really unique position to see how the latest technological developments can or can't help people with Parkinson's disease. So I just encourage all kids with that have parents with PD to recognize that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Colin. With your experience and your journey, we're now going to touch on the aspects of community and awareness. So my question is, did you get involved with Parkinson's awareness or advocacy because of your experience and your circumstances at the moment? And Anastasia, we can hear from you.
Absolutely. My mom's always kind of been a role model for me, but just seeing her continue to navigate this and be an advocate for herself, I wanted to continue to support that. It was very impactful, and as a child of a person with Parkinson's, it also was a moment for me to cheer on my mom and really find a way to share that I find what she's doing important and that it's not going unnoticed, because we did see her have to make such a big shift from being this clinical provider catching babies to having to repivot on how that looks with her diagnosis. It's also really inspired me because my mom's Parkinson's is so much different. You don't really always see it. Hers is very painful, a lot of dystonia. And so it looks different than what a lot of individuals think Parkinson's going to look like. There's not as much tremor. There's not as that's coming as she's going more and more into her diagnosis. But seeing it be different for her and seeing it being different than what is researched has just really encouraged me to continue to just share that everyone's Parkinson's journey is different. Everyone's symptoms are different. There's not a one size fits all. And I think that's really important. And just adding another voice to that has been really important to me to support my family through this journey.
Thank you. You mentioned something that it's important to highlight again, and Colin touched on that as well. Parkinson's disease affects the individual differently. Indeed, we have the motor aspect in the form of the tremor, the stiffness, rigidity, we call it, the slowness of movement, the balance instability. But we know that there's a hidden array of other non-motor symptoms that can affect the individual and can be very intrusive with Parkinson's disease. And so it's really important to highlight that, and thank you for mentioning that, Anastasia. What about you, Mimi? I mean, did you get involved with Parkinson's awareness or advocacy because of your experience?
Definitely, yeah. My mom is the founder of a charity, Parkinson's Africa, that raises money and awareness of Parkinson's in African countries. And I think seeing her speak at events and advocate for Parkinson's awareness has inspired me because it's informed a lot of people and myself about the importance of being aware of diseases like Parkinson's. And I think just seeing her raise awareness really like motivated me to want to get involved.
Wonderful, very inspiring. Thank you. And Abbas, did you get involved in Parkinson's awareness or advocacy because of your experience?
Well, in my own way, yeah. So after my mum was diagnosed, I wanted to learn more about Parkinson's. So I started reading, like watching videos, going to like ChatGPT and like just general resources, and to like basically understand what was happening. And over time, I began to talk more openly about it, not just at home, but like with friends and sometimes at school. And I found like a lot of people don't actually really know what it is, or that it only affects older people, or like a famous person who's got it was like Muhammad Ali. People might just think you might get it just from boxing, whatever. But so I try to like show them no, it can be like for this, and that. And then even though I haven't really done any public speaking or like anything like advocacy, I try to raise awareness, like, and I think it can also like happen through like um everyday conversations, and sometimes do share stuff online or just talk honestly about how my mum's doing. And I've learned that even small efforts can make a difference, especially when it comes to encouraging understanding and kindness.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Today I had something so beautiful as well. Is one of my patients with Parkinson's who has a 15-year-old boy, and I did direct him to this webinar. But he said to me that his son prepared a little presentation to his classmate about Parkinson's disease. He decided that he wanted to raise the awareness like that and just teach them so they'll be a bit more aware about the symptoms, the prognosis and treatment available. And that was wonderful to hear. And this is something small that can be done in schooling as well, or different setting. Very nice to hear that. We've got less than 10 minutes. Goodness me, the time go very, very, very quickly. Before we move on to the question on the chat, and I appreciate and thank so many of you who submitted questions to this webinar. I've got one question that I would like to ask. And it'd be nice if each of you can give us kind of a sentence on this. What advice would you give to other young people who are in the same situation? Let's start with Mimi.
As I mentioned earlier, like I think just being patient and understanding is probably the most important thing, or at least it was in my experience. And I think just being able to understand that you don't really know what anyone else is going through, you don't know the battles that they're struggling with. I think that's a really important thing to have.
Thank you, Mimi. Anastasia?
I agree, Mimi, with the patience. I would also say empathy. I think it really helped grow my empathy, but just trying to allow yourself to feel what your parent is feeling. And also just being willing to sit there in silence next to them when they're having a hard moment and just letting them have a hard moment. Um, has is and not dwell too much on it, just sit there and be with them. I think that grows your empathy and your patience immensely, and that I wish I did that more earlier in the journey.
Thank you. Colin?
Well, since this question is addressed at millennials and Gen Z, I've prepared a small demographic specific image, a meme that I wanted to share. Let's see if I could get it up. That actually kind of highlights what I see as a commonality between the experience of Parkinson's and uh, us younger people. Here it is. Can people see that?
Yes.
I'll just let it sink in for a moment. Sorry, Mr. Text. I was processing a nonstop 24/7 onslaught of information with the brain designed to eat berries in a cave. Um, and actually, one of the things that scientists say happens in the Parkinsonian brain is the receptive fields of thalamic neurons expand to the point where the brain is overwhelmed with extrasensory information. And that results in, let's see, where is it? uh, it impairs the brain's ability to process information and select the correct motor response. And that can result in slowness or sluggishness of movement. People with Parkinson's disease often describe it as like moving through a thick pool of mud every day. And it just struck me that this is a feeling that our generation can deeply relate to. Our neural receptive fields haven't expanded, but the onslaught of sensory information that we experience, from notifications to direct messages to the advance of technology, it's overwhelming. And so, it's not Parkinson's, but if we can just imagine our parents as having a much more intense version of that, then I think it can inspire empathy and maybe even a little bit of a sense of camaraderie with them.
Thank you, Colin. And finally, Abbas, would you like to say a word? What advice would you give young people who are in the same situation?
To be honest, just don't worry. It'll work out. It's like, um, it's not like she's going, nothing bad's gonna happen. Like all these scenarios you create in your head when you first hear it, none of those are gonna happen. Although it is called a disease, don't treat it just as in a like a typical old disease. It does affect you significantly and um everything, but just get on with it. It's come and like make jokes about it, make it every day. Don't make it a thing like an odd topic. Just make it a light topic, make jokes about it to make that they feel better about it and you're able to cope with it better because if you're joking about it, you're talking about it more, you're able to express yourself more about it. And yeah, it's don't worry, don't be too hard on yourself or like too worry, whatever. Just chill basically, that's all I'll say.
Thank you so much. This is such a lovely message from all of you. You are fantastic and very inspirational as well. It's 30 minutes past 6, and I'm conscious of time. We've got a few more minutes. There were two questions on the chat, but on the same theme, and I will just read one of them. A question from Jess and similar question from the UK. Did your parents try to hide information to protect you or keep information about the symptoms, treatment, or progression of Parkinson's disease secret of any other family member? Or were they always been open with information? How did that affect you in your role as a care partner and within your family relationship? Abbas, go for it.
Uh, uh, well, I don't think they have, or they've been doing it very well. But they've been really, really open about it, to be honest. Like, if I see a new symptom or I'm asking like what's happening, like when I first saw like her getting dyskinesia, yeah, I think that's what it's called. I was quite concerned at first. Then she just said it's normal. And I was like, oh, that's fine. She doesn't really hide anything from me. If it happens, it happens. And I don't do my own research on the symptoms too much because it worries yourself out. So I wouldn't actually say for the younger people, don't try to research all the symptoms because you're not going to get all the symptoms. Everyone's unique. So yeah, and we've all been really open about, like, I've talked to all my family members, like my cousins, my uncles, etc. If I needed help or I was worried or I didn't feel comfortable talking about my mum or dad. And yeah, and I don't think it should be something you should hide about. But yeah, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very encouraging. Anyone else wants to comment on that?
I would just reiterate my first answer is a great balance between not hiding anything, answering any questions, but then also not like necessarily offering a ton of information, but always be open if the child's asking about something. That was great for me.
Thank you, Colin. As I mentioned before, it's rather difficult, maybe the early stage, and depends how Parkinson's affect the individual, to hide such a diagnosis. As the more you try to hide it, because you aim to protect whoever's surrounding you for a variety of reasons, the more difficult it is to control some of those symptoms. And it's put so much strain on that individual parents with Parkinson's disease. So yeah, it's something to think about. Well, it's 60 minutes past 6. I want to thank the WPC for hosting such a fantastic session. Thank you so much. I want to thank my panelists. You've been amazing, inspiring. Colin, Nastasia, Mimi, Abbas. I'm in awe of you after what you shared with us. It is personal for you, so we all appreciate sharing your story and experiences with us. And I do hope that all of you, the audience, teenager, parents, friends of people with Parkinson's who join us today, managed to get some knowledge, learn from this experience of our panelists, and some tips about how to handle talking about diagnosis with Parkinson's disease and lifestyle living with Parkinson's disease as a parent, as well as for the teenager. Thank you all, and I wish you a good afternoon or evening, wherever you are. And thank you again.